Welcome to Oculus of the Wise. Chosen one, before anything else happens in this moment, I need you to slow down and listen carefully. Because something about the timing of your life right now is not random. Something about the way this message reached you carries a weight that most people scrolling across the internet will never understand. You might think you simply clicked on a video. You might assume this is just another message passing through your screen like thousands of others you have seen before, but deep inside you already sense that something about this moment feels different. Something about the atmosphere around you right now feels unusually quiet, almost as if the noise of the world stepped back for a second so you could hear something meant specifically for you. And if that feeling stirred in your chest even slightly, then do not ignore it. Do not brush it aside as coincidence, because the truth is that moments like this rarely appear without reason. There are seasons in life when the spiritual world begins to move around a person in ways that cannot always be explained with logic. Doors close without warning. Certain people drift away. Old patterns that once felt permanent suddenly lose their power, and a quiet awareness begins rising in the soul that says something is changing. Many people feel these shifts, but never stop long enough to understand them. They rush past the moment, they dismiss the stirring in their spirit. They return to the distractions that keep them comfortable. But every once in a while someone pauses, someone listens. Someone senses that what they are experiencing is not simply stress or imagination, but preparation. Chosen one, if you have felt that strange mixture of pressure and anticipation recently, if you have sensed that something about your life is moving beneath the surface, even when nothing around you seems to change, then what you are about to hear may explain more than you expected. Because there is a pattern that many people overlook until it is already unfolding in their own story. A pattern where certain individuals are quietly separated from the noise of the crowd long before their purpose becomes visible. A pattern where confusion, delay, and unexpected resistance appear not as punishment, but as a kind of preparation. A refining season that feels uncomfortable while it is happening, but later reveals itself as the foundation for something much larger. The reason I ask you not to rush away from this message is simple. What we are about to talk about is not entertainment. It is recognition. It is the moment when a person begins to see the deeper meaning behind experiences that once felt random. And if you have ever looked back at your life and wondered why certain battles seemed unusually heavy, why certain attacks appeared without clear cause, or why you often felt different even in rooms full of people who believed the same things you did, then stay with this message. Because by the time we reach the end of what is about to unfold, many of the questions that followed you quietly for years may begin to make sense in a way they never have before. So take a breath for a moment, let the noise settle, and listen closely. Because what you are about to understand may reveal that your story has been moving toward a moment like this for far longer than you realized. Now here is where many people begin to recognize something inside their own story. There has always been something about your life that did not follow the same pattern as everyone around you. Even from an early age, you may have noticed that the way you saw the world felt slightly different. While others seemed comfortable moving with the crowd, something inside you kept observing quietly, questioning deeply, sensing things that could not always be explained. You may not have spoken about it often. In fact, for many years you probably kept those feelings to yourself because explaining them felt impossible, but you noticed patterns. You noticed shifts in people before others did. You sensed tension in environments before anyone else acknowledged it. And sometimes you carried a strange awareness that events unfolding around you were part of something larger, even if you could not fully understand what that meant. For many chosen ones, this awareness does not appear suddenly in adulthood. It begins as a quiet sensitivity that grows stronger over time. You start noticing that certain conversations feel empty, certain environments drain your energy, and certain moments of silence feel more meaningful than hours of noise. There were seasons when you tried to ignore it, seasons when you tried to live the same way everyone else did because life seemed easier that way, but something always pulled you back toward a deeper perspective, a deeper awareness that life was not simply about routine, survival, or comfort. And if you are honest with yourself, there were moments when that difference felt like a burden, times when you wondered why you could not simply move through life without noticing so much, why you could not ignore things that others seemed able to overlook. But what many people misunderstand is that sensitivity of spirit is rarely random. Throughout history, individuals who were later recognized for their spiritual influence often described the same experience. They felt set apart long before they understood why. They sensed things unfolding around them that others dismissed, and they often walked through seasons of confusion before clarity arrived. You may also remember periods in your life when rejection appeared without clear explanation, situations where relationships changed suddenly, moments when people who once stood close to you began acting strangely distant. At the time it may have felt painful, even personal, but with time you may have started noticing something interesting. Those same moments of separation often protected you from environments that later revealed deeper problems. Conversations you were excluded from eventually exposed unhealthy dynamics. Opportunities that disappeared turned out to be paths that would have led you somewhere you were never meant to stay. At first, those experiences felt like loss, but slowly they began to reveal a different pattern. It was almost as if certain doors closed, not to punish you, but to redirect you. This is where many people begin to realize that what they once called bad luck may have actually been protection. Because when a person carries an assignment that stretches beyond ordinary circumstances, life often begins shaping them long before the assignment becomes visible. Chosen one, the seasons that felt like isolation were often seasons of refinement. The delays that once frustrated you were often moments where your perspective was being strengthened. And the battles that appeared without clear cause sometimes revealed the spiritual weight your life carries. Many people reach a point in their life when they begin looking back and asking one simple question: why did all of those experiences happen to me? Why did certain attacks appear without warning? Why did certain relationships collapse the moment things seemed stable? Why did moments of peace sometimes arrive right in the middle of chaos? The answer is rarely simple, but the pattern often reveals something powerful, because throughout history, individuals who eventually stepped into meaningful spiritual influence were rarely shaped through comfort alone. They were shaped through pressure, through questions, through moments where the surface of life cracked just enough for deeper truth to emerge. And if something in your spirit has ever whispered that your life was preparing you for something beyond ordinary explanation, then stay with this message, because what comes next may reveal why the battles you faced were never as random as they once appeared. Before we go deeper, take a moment and breathe. Let these thoughts settle for a second, and if something in this message is already speaking to your experience, quietly acknowledge it. Sometimes the most powerful confirmations arrive not through noise, but through a quiet moment of recognition. Because the next part of this message will begin uncovering a truth that many people overlook for years. The truth about why certain individuals face resistance long before their purpose becomes visible. Now this is the part many people struggle to understand while they are living through it, because when resistance appears in a person's life, the natural reaction is to assume something has gone wrong. We assume we made a mistake. We assume we chose the wrong direction. We assume the pressure means we should turn back. But history shows a very different pattern. Again and again, the individuals who eventually carried influence, wisdom, or spiritual authority often experienced unusual resistance long before their purpose became clear. Not because they were failing, but because their lives were beginning to move into territory that unsettled forces they could not yet see. Chosen one, many people live quiet lives without drawing any unusual attention from the unseen world. They move with the current of culture. They adapt to the expectations around them. And because their path rarely disrupts anything, resistance stays minimal. But when a person begins carrying something deeper, something that challenges deception, exposes hidden motives, or awakens truth in others, the atmosphere around them begins to react. Sometimes that reaction shows up as criticism that seems strangely intense. Other times it appears as misunderstanding from people who once supported you. And occasionally it manifests as sudden conflict that seems to come from nowhere at all. At the time those experiences feel confusing. You may have asked yourself more than once why certain people appeared threatened by you even when you were not competing with them. Why conversations shifted the moment you walked into a room. Why tension surfaced in places where you were simply trying to live peacefully. But with time, many chosen ones begin to see the pattern more clearly. The resistance was never truly about what you said or did. It was about what your presence represented. Because when someone carries clarity in environments that have grown comfortable with confusion, their presence alone begins exposing things others would rather keep hidden. And when hidden things are exposed, reactions often follow. This does not mean every difficulty in life has spiritual meaning, but there are moments when the level of resistance surrounding a person begins matching the weight of the purpose they carry, and that is when life can start to feel unusually intense. You may remember seasons when your mind felt under pressure, moments when you questioned your direction, nights when sleep came slowly because your thoughts would not settle. Many chosen ones experience this phase quietly. They keep showing up, they keep moving forward, but deep inside, they feel the friction between who they have always been and the version of themselves that is slowly emerging. What most people do not realize is that this tension often appears right before a shift in identity, right before a person steps into a deeper level of clarity about why their life unfolded the way it did. And when that shift begins, something interesting happens. The same pressure that once felt overwhelming begins turning into awareness. You start seeing patterns you once overlooked. You begin understanding why certain people entered your life only for a season. You recognize how moments that once felt like setbacks quietly redirected you away from paths that would have limited your growth, and slowly the confusion begins giving way to understanding. This is the moment many people describe as awakening, not a dramatic event filled with noise, but a steady realization that the story of your life has always been moving somewhere meaningful, that the battles you faced were shaping something inside you, and that the version of yourself emerging now carries a clarity that did not exist before. But this realization leads to an even deeper question. If all those experiences were shaping you, then what exactly were they preparing you for? Stay with me, because the next part of this message begins revealing the turning point many chosen ones reach when preparation gives way to purpose. There comes a moment in many lives when the long season of questions slowly begins to give way to clarity. Not all at once, not in a dramatic flash, but like the first light that appears before sunrise, subtle at first, yet impossible to ignore once you notice it. For many chosen ones, this turning point begins with silence, a strange kind of silence that feels different from the noise of ordinary life. It is the silence that arrives when certain distractions fall away, the silence that appears when environments that once felt familiar begin to feel distant, the silence that gives a person the space to hear thoughts and insights that were always present but previously drowned out by constant activity. You may have noticed this recently, moments where you suddenly felt less interested in conversations that once filled your time, moments where you found yourself stepping back from patterns that once felt normal, not because you were trying to isolate yourself, but because something inside you was shifting. Many people misinterpret this phase. They assume something is wrong with them. They worry they are becoming distant or disconnected, but in reality this stage often appears right before a deeper realignment begins. Because when preparation reaches its final stages, life has a way of creating the quiet necessary for clarity to emerge. Chosen one, this is where many people begin realizing that the silence they once feared was never abandonment, it was positioning. Positioning for a moment when the pieces of their story begin connecting in ways they never expected. You start seeing how the delays protected you. You recognize how certain closed doors redirected your path. You understand why some relationships ended even though you tried to hold them together. And suddenly, a powerful realization begins forming in your mind. None of it was random. Every stage of your journey was shaping your awareness, your patience, and your ability to see beyond surface appearances. That realization alone can change the way a person views their entire life. Because instead of seeing a long series of obstacles, you begin seeing preparation. Instead of viewing certain memories as failures, you begin recognizing them as turning points that quietly guided you toward who you were becoming. And this is where many chosen ones begin feeling something else rising within them, responsibility. The awareness that if your life truly carried meaning beyond coincidence, then the clarity you are gaining now is not meant to remain hidden forever. It is meant to influence how you live moving forward. Before we go further, pause for a moment and reflect on that idea. If parts of your life that once looked random were actually shaping you, then it means your story may carry value for others who are still walking through similar confusion. That realization is often the beginning of purpose. And if something in this message is already resonating with your experience, take a moment right now to acknowledge it. Many people watching quietly recognize pieces of their own story in these words. If that is happening for you, let me know in the comments by writing the word awareness, not as a performance, but as a quiet declaration that you recognize the shift happening in your life. And if messages like this help you slow down and see your own journey more clearly, consider supporting the channel by subscribing and sharing these conversations with someone who may also need to hear them. Not because a channel needs attention, but because sometimes the right message reaches the right person at exactly the moment they were ready to hear it. Now here is the part that often surprises people the most. When clarity begins rising in a person's life, the environment around them often starts shifting as well. People who once felt comfortable around you may suddenly grow distant. Conversations that once flowed easily may begin feeling forced. And in some situations, individuals who once ignored you may begin reacting to you in ways that feel strangely intense. This stage can feel confusing if you do not understand what is happening beneath the surface. But throughout history, the same pattern appears again and again. When a person begins stepping into greater clarity, the contrast between truth and illusion becomes more visible, and not everyone feels comfortable with that contrast. Because clarity does something powerful, it exposes, it reveals hidden motives, it highlights unhealthy dynamics. It forces situations built on confusion to confront the presence of truth. And when that happens, reactions often follow. But those reactions are not signs that you are moving in the wrong direction. Often they are evidence that your life has entered a new level of awareness. And once that awareness begins to grow, the path ahead starts revealing something many people spend years searching for. The understanding that their life carries influence beyond what they once imagined, which leads us to the next question that many chosen ones eventually face. What happens when the season of preparation finally gives way to the season of purpose? For many people, purpose does not arrive with a loud announcement. It begins quietly, almost gently, like a realization that grows stronger each day until it becomes impossible to ignore. Chosen one. The first sign that purpose is beginning to reveal itself is not visibility. It is alignment in the way you see situations, alignment in the way you respond to challenges, alignment in the way your priorities begin to shift away from things that once seemed important. You may have noticed that certain distractions no longer hold the same power over your attention. Conversations that once consumed your time now feel empty. Environments that once felt normal now leave you feeling restless. This is not because you have become distant from life, it is because your life is moving into greater clarity. When a person begins stepping into purpose, the inner compass guiding their decisions starts becoming stronger than the external pressure of expectations. The need to please everyone begins fading. The need to follow paths that were never meant for you begins losing its influence. And slowly, almost quietly, the direction of your life begins to change. You may not fully understand where the path leads yet, but you know with certainty that you cannot return to the same way of living you once accepted. This moment can feel both exciting and unsettling. Exciting because something inside you recognizes that growth is happening. Unsettling because stepping into purpose often requires leaving behind versions of yourself that once felt safe. Many chosen ones reach this stage and begin noticing another surprising shift. The same experiences that once confused them now begin making sense. The seasons of isolation taught you how to stand on your own convictions. The seasons of rejection taught you how to recognize the difference between approval and truth. The seasons of delay taught you patience and perspective that many people never develop. When you look back through this lens, the story of your life begins forming a pattern that was invisible while you were living through it, and that pattern reveals something powerful. You were being shaped, not for comfort, but for influence. Influence does not always mean standing on a stage or speaking to thousands of people. Sometimes influence simply means carrying a perspective that helps others see more clearly when confusion surrounds them. Sometimes influence means being the calm voice in moments when others react in fear. Sometimes influence means standing firm in truth when compromise seems easier. And sometimes influence means helping someone else recognize that their struggles are not meaningless, that their life still carries value even when circumstances say otherwise. Chosen one, the reason many people feel drawn to messages like this is not because they are searching for titles or recognition. They are searching for meaning behind the experiences that shaped them, meaning behind the battles that strengthened them, meaning behind the quiet voice inside them that refuses to disappear even after years of doubt. If you have felt that voice guiding you, encouraging you to grow, even when the path felt unclear, then what you are experiencing is not unusual. It is the natural beginning of purpose becoming visible. But purpose does not only change the way you see yourself, it also changes the way others respond to you. When clarity grows inside a person, their presence begins affecting environments around them, not through force, but through contrast. People who value truth often feel drawn toward that clarity. They feel encouraged by it. They feel supported by the stability it brings. But others may react differently. Those who rely on confusion, manipulation, or control sometimes feel unsettled when clarity enters the room. Not because you are attacking them, but because truth naturally exposes what is hidden. This is why some chosen ones experience a strange mixture of reactions as they step into purpose. Some people move closer, others move away, some become supportive, others become uncomfortable. At first, this shift may feel personal, but with time you begin understanding that it was never about personal conflict. It was about alignment. Alignment between those who are ready to grow and those who prefer remaining where they are. And once that alignment begins separating itself naturally, the path ahead becomes clearer. You begin recognizing the people who are meant to walk beside you in this next season of life. You begin recognizing the conversations that truly matter. You begin recognizing that your story, with all of its unexpected turns, may actually carry lessons that someone else needs to hear. Before we continue, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. Think about the experiences that shaped you over the years, the moments that tested your patience, the challenges that forced you to grow stronger than you thought possible. If you can see now that those experiences helped shape the clarity you carry today, write the word purpose in the comments below. Sometimes acknowledging growth is the first step toward using it to help others. And if conversations like this encourage you to look deeper into your own journey, make sure you stay connected to Oculus of the Wise by subscribing to the channel. Messages like these are meant to reach people who are searching for clarity, and sharing them allows that clarity to reach someone who may need it today. Because the truth is, your story may not only be about you, it may also be about the people whose path will cross yours next. And that realization leads to the next layer many chosen ones eventually discover: the responsibility that comes with understanding your influence. This is the moment many people hesitate, because realizing that your life carries influence is inspiring, but it is also sobering. Influence means your choices matter. Influence means the clarity you have gained through years of experience is not meant to remain silent forever. Chosen one, when purpose begins to awaken inside a person, it naturally brings responsibility with it. Responsibility to guard the perspective you fought so hard to gain. Responsibility to protect your mind from voices that try to pull you back into confusion. Responsibility to choose environments that strengthen your growth instead of draining it. And perhaps most importantly, responsibility to live with integrity even when no one else is watching. Because the influence you carry does not begin when people notice you. It begins in the quiet decisions you make every day. The choice to remain patient when anger would be easier. The choice to stay honest when shortcuts appear tempting. The choice to keep learning, growing, and refining your perspective instead of settling into complacency. These choices may seem small in the moment, but over time, they shape the character that gives your voice weight when others finally begin listening. Many people want influence without preparation. They want recognition without discipline. They want their voice to matter without developing the character that makes their words trustworthy. But the path you have walked was shaping something deeper. Every challenge strengthened your resilience. Every moment of reflection deepened your understanding. Every setback forced you to grow in ways comfort never could. And now those experiences form the foundation for how you will move forward. This is why many chosen ones eventually reach a point where they begin guarding their time more carefully. They recognize that attention is valuable. They begin choosing conversations that bring growth instead of endless negativity. They become more selective about where their energy goes, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. Because once you recognize that your life carries influence, protecting your clarity becomes essential. And something else begins happening as well. Your presence starts affecting people around you in subtle ways. Some will feel encouraged when they speak with you. They will walk away from conversations feeling more hopeful, more focused, more aware of their own potential. Others may feel challenged simply by the way you live, not because you are judging them, but because your clarity reminds them of changes they know they need to make in their own lives. This is one of the quiet truths about influence. You do not have to force it. You simply have to live it. And over time, the right people will recognize it. They will notice the steadiness in the way you approach challenges. They will see the perspective you bring into difficult situations. They will begin realizing that your story carries insights that can help them navigate their own journey. This is why your life experiences matter. The struggles you once wished would disappear may one day become the exact stories that help someone else keep going when they feel like giving up. The lessons you learn through patience may become the wisdom someone else desperately needs during a difficult moment. And the clarity you develop through years of searching may become the guidance that helps another person finally see their own path. Chosen one, influence often begins quietly like this, not with applause, not with titles, but with the steady realization that your life has the power to encourage growth in the people around you. And when you embrace that responsibility with humility, something remarkable begins to happen. Your purpose stops feeling distant. It starts becoming part of the way you live every day. Now take a moment and consider something important. If every experience in your life has been shaping the clarity you carry today, then imagine the impact that clarity can have when it is shared with intention. Imagine the difference it can make when someone who once felt lost hears a perspective that helps them understand their own struggles in a new way. That is how influence spreads. One conversation at a time, one story at a time, one moment of understanding that helps another person see their life with renewed purpose. And this brings us to the final realization many chosen ones reach after years of searching for meaning. The realization that their life was never only about their own journey, it was also about the lives they would quietly influence along the way. There is a moment that arrives quietly in the life of many people who have walked through years of searching. It is the moment when they stop asking why their journey was so different from everyone around them, and they begin asking a new question: what was all of it preparing me to become? Chosen one, that question has changed the direction of many lives throughout history. Because when a person stops seeing their past only as a collection of difficult memories and begins recognizing it as preparation, something powerful happens inside their perspective. Regret begins losing its control. Confusion begins giving way to clarity, and the story of their life begins transforming from something they survived into something they can now use. You may not feel extraordinary. You may still remember every mistake you made along the way. You may still see yourself as someone who is learning day by day just like everyone else. But that humility is often the very reason your voice carries weight when you speak, because people are not searching for perfection. They are searching for honesty. They are searching for perspective that comes from real experience rather than empty words. And the life you have lived has given you something many people are still searching for: understanding. Understanding of how pressure shapes character, understanding of how patience grows through seasons of delay, understanding of how clarity appears when a person is willing to face difficult truths instead of avoiding them. That understanding is more valuable than many people realize, because there are countless individuals walking through seasons right now that look very similar to the seasons you already survived. They feel confused. They feel discouraged. They wonder if their life has meaning beyond the struggles they are facing. And sometimes all it takes to help someone keep moving forward is hearing the voice of another person who has already walked through the same valley and discovered that the road continues on the other side. That is how purpose often begins revealing itself. Not through dramatic moments, but through the steady realization that your life experiences may become the guidance someone else needs. Chosen one, this is why many people feel a strange sense of responsibility when clarity begins growing in their life. They recognize that the wisdom they gain through hardship is not something they should bury. It is something they can share in ways that encourage others. Sometimes that influence appears in conversations with friends. Sometimes it appears through the example you set in the way you live. And sometimes it appears in moments where someone simply needs to hear a calm voice that reminds them they are not alone in their struggle. The world we live in today is filled with noise, opinions everywhere, arguments everywhere, endless streams of information competing for attention, but clarity remains rare, and people who carry clarity often become quiet anchors in the lives of those around them, not because they claim to have all the answers, but because they have learned how to seek truth with patience and humility. If you have reached the point in your life where you can see your past with greater understanding than before, then that clarity itself is already a sign that something inside you has grown stronger. Stronger than the doubts that once tried to silence you, stronger than the confusion that once surrounded you, stronger than the voices that once told you your story did not matter. Your story does matter, not because it is perfect, but because it is real. And real stories are what help other people realize that their life still carries possibility. Before we close this message, take one more moment to reflect on your journey. Think about where you were 10 years ago. Think about the challenges that shaped your perspective. Think about the lessons you learned that you could never have understood any other way. All of those experiences formed the person you are today. And the person you are today carries insight that someone else may need tomorrow. If something in this message has helped you see your own life with greater clarity, take a moment and let me know by writing the word clarity in the comments below. Moments like this remind us that none of us walk our journey completely alone. And if you want to continue having conversations that explore purpose, perspective, and the deeper meaning behind the paths we walk, make sure you are subscribed to Oculus of the Wise so you do not miss the next message. Share this video with someone who may need encouragement today. Sometimes the right words reach a person at exactly the right moment. And if this message reached you during a time when you needed it, then perhaps that moment is now chosen one. The truth is simple. Your life was never random. Every challenge shaped you. Every delay strengthened you. Every lesson refined you. And every step brought you closer to the clarity you carry today. So move forward with that clarity. Protect it, grow it, and use it wisely. Because the world does not change through noise alone. It changes when people who have learned through experience begin living with purpose. And your journey may be one of the stories that helps light the path for someone else. Until next time, continue seeking wisdom. And remember that sometimes the quietest moments of reflection reveal the most powerful truths.